You're watching Fantasy Now Plus.
Hello, everyone. Welcome into a brand new stream here on Fantasy Now Plus, brought to you by the Finns Talk Sports Network. I am here to draft some Playoff Best Ball on Underdog. They just released these contests maybe 3 hours ago, 4 hours ago, something like that. So these are brand new. There is a lot to play for, a lot of good stuff from Underdog. By the way, if you have not joined Underdog yet and you want to get in on the action, if you play $5, you will get $75 in bonus funds if you use the promo code FN+, as you can see on the screen down below. So some of you might be asking, what is Playoff Best Ball? So basically, it's a best ball tournament, obviously. Let's take a look at one of these contests, actually. So this is the Little Mitten, for example. It's only a $3 entry, 20 entries max. First place wins $5,000. There's 18,600 entrants in total. And what you will do is you're drafting a team of one quarterback, one running back, two wide receiver or tight end players, so basically just receivers, one flex position, and then 5 bench spots. And if you're new to best ball, basically this will take the highest scores of the week and automatically play those players for you. You don't have to make start-sit decisions. You don't have to worry about waivers, trades, none of that type of stuff. It's just draft the best team you can and let the chips fall where they may. Underdog scoring is pretty standard. 0.5 point per reception, 6-point touchdowns for receiving and rushing, 4-point passing. You can see on the screen, pretty normal, pretty standard. The payout structure of some of these contests, we'll stick with the Little Mitten since we already started there. We can tell that it's pretty top heavy. First place gets $5,000 on a $3 entry. Second place only gets half of that. 10th place only gets 10% of that, which is relatively standard. So the goal of Playoff Best Ball is obviously to win it all, but to win it all, you need a live lineup in the Super Bowl. So it's kind of a fun, interesting take on making playoff picks, pretty much. Instead of just picking a team and seeing if they go, you also get to pick the players and see if they can score enough fantasy points in enough consecutive weeks to get you into this final round. So, that's probably one of the biggest theories to talk about, to think about in Playoff Best Ball. You want to really focus on building out a Super Bowl roster that can score points, that can get you there. And, we don't have any control over these players. We don't have any control over injuries, anything like that. It's kind of the point of these drafts is you're taking your shot based on some basic math, some basic game theory, and it's not exactly a lottery, but it's really just seeing if you can be lucky enough to call your shot, and you'll get a decent chunk of change for doing so. So before I jump into any of these drafts, want to go over a few things about the playoff picture, the final schedule for some of these teams, and really kind of hone in on teams we want to focus on, teams we think could make the Super Bowl, could win the Super Bowl. You don't have to win the Super Bowl to win this contest. You could have enough players from the losing team that you could still conceivably win the tournament. So it's mostly about picking a team that you think has the best chance of making the Super Bowl. So if we go over here, we're looking at the current playoffs standings as it is now before week 15 heads in. In the AFC, you have two pretty clear frontrunners in Denver and the Patriots at 11-2. No one else is in the picture with more than 9 wins. So as far as getting the 1 seed, which plays a pretty big role in this contest, it's more or less down to these two teams. So if we're thinking about the 1 seed, they have a bye. So you're not going to get any points from any teams that are on that bye. And so if you're picking a 1 seed to make the Super Bowl, you have to make sure and build a roster with your other 5 picks that will advance you out of the first round. And that's certainly easier said than done, but it's not impossible. And, in years past, we had some pretty dominant 1 seeds that were very clearly Super Bowl favorites. We had Chiefs in years past where they were the 1 seed and you just kind of knew that they were going to make the Super Bowl. Like it was more or less a coin flip every year of, will it finally be the Bills' year? It's never been the Bills' year yet, but that could change this year. We'll get into that. But this year, it's not as cut and dry, I think a lot of people don't really believe in the Broncos as like a top seed, and a little bit more the Patriots, but still not to the extent of, they're the Super Bowl favorites out of the AFC. I think a lot of people are still picking the Bills, especially with the Chiefs now more or less down to, let's take a look at it. Yeah, 11% current playoff probability. That loss on Sunday night was brutal. It certainly did not go their way. But honestly, when you look at the playoff picture as a whole, it's not fully set. Obviously, none of these are 100%, but it's going to take kind of an act of God for almost all of these teams to miss the playoffs as things currently stand. There's only really a few teams that are truly like, and if things start turning against them, they're just going to drop out. Unfortunately, one of them is the Colts. Daniel Jones is out for the season with an Achilles tear. Phillip Rivers is now projected to be their starting quarterback at 44 years old. And honestly, their schedule, the rest of the regular season, is absolutely brutal. If I'm looking at it right here, week 15, Seattle, week 16, the 49ers, 17, the Jaguars again, week 18, the Texans. They unfortunately have a pretty monumental task to even make the playoffs at this point, let alone win a game. Like, they could easily go 0-4 to finish out this season without Daniel Jones at the helm. I will never say never on them, but they unfortunately feel pretty dead to make the playoffs. As unfortunately kind of the Ravens as well. Losing to Pittsburgh is just kind of unacceptable. Losing to Cincinnati was kind of unacceptable for them. And at the end of the day, Lamar is injured. That's pretty obvious. He's playing injured. Derrick Henry looks like he's finally starting to be affected by father time. Playing in the cold weather has not helped him as it has in years past. Ravens, despite only being 1 win behind Pittsburgh, is still at a 33% chance. And frankly, they face each other again in week 18. So that game could end up deciding the division. But I personally am kind of operating that the Ravens are done. Not to say that I have a lot of faith in the Steelers, but I just don't think the Ravens have it this year. They just have looked flat. They've played awful. Their defense, even though it's getting healthy again, still isn't like that great. and they go as Lamar goes. So from a playoff standpoint, AFC feels pretty wrapped up to me. Yes, there is like a 30+% chance for a couple of these teams, but they're long shots for a reason. The NFC is relatively wrapped up as well. The Detroit Lions and the Carolina Panthers to some extent, but not really. They'll make it kind of interesting. Definitely the Lions. It'll really just depend how the Bears fare to finish out the season and how the Lions fare. If you're looking at their schedule, Chicago finishes out with Cleveland, Green Bay, San Francisco, and Detroit. That's 3 playoff teams and a really good defense in Cleveland. So that's not a cupcake schedule whatsoever. Detroit plays the Rams this week. They have the Steelers next week, the Vikings, and then obviously the Bears. Again, 3 playoff level teams and a good defense in Minnesota. So none of these are walks in the park, but there's certainly going to be interesting games to watch. As far as drafting Detroit Lions right now, it's tempting. I mean, if they make the NFC playoffs, like, it definitely feels like they have the talent to make a run and, be a Cinderella Super Bowl team. But unfortunately, their pieces are pretty expensive in drafts, as you'll see when we jump into it here in a bit. And, I don't think it's bad to take your shot on Lions, especially day one of this contest dropping when it's still, a literal coin flip at this point. But I would definitely maybe wait on them. You can get good prices on some of their players, but it's going to get dicey. And one rough loss to the Rams, and suddenly their playoff chances are probably in like the 30% range as well. And then you just have dead players before the contest even starts on some of your rosters. So right now, until the playoffs are a lot more clear, I think for the most part, I'm kind of minimizing risk to some degree. I'm staying away from a lot of 7 seed, 8 seed type of teams that are on the bubble, and not fully writing them out. I'll still take pieces from them for sure. But I think if you're building a portfolio of teams, if you're going to draft 150 of the Gauntlet of Underdog's main contest, then I definitely think it's a good idea to build in some contingent value and build in some contingencies for, hey, this is the most wide open this contest has arguably ever been. I mean, obviously we've had Chiefs in consecutive Super Bowls, and it's kind of just been going back and forth between Eagles and whoever else. So this year it truly feels wide open. There's certainly some teams that are better positioned and seem better on paper than others, but I would not be shocked if just about any of these playoff teams were able to go on a run and make it to the Super Bowl. So if we're looking at the Gauntlet here, you can look at their advancement rate: 1 out of 6, 1 out of 6, 1 out of 5, and then 500 people in the finals. So basically, you have to win your pod every single time. When you win out of the first round, you'll be put into another pod of 6 or 5 other random people, and you have to win that one. Then again, 4 other random people, you have to win that one to even make the finals. And obviously the payout on this one, as their main playoff contest, much bigger: $500,000 to first place, $250,000 to second, only $6,000 to 10th place. That is a very, very small amount comparatively. I mean, 4th place is only 10% of first. When we looked at the little mitten, it was 10th place that was 10% of first. So if you're playing the Gauntlet, you are absolutely and utterly playing for first place. You're not trying to advance teams. You're not trying to min cash and get in the top 15,000. Like you were playing for this prize, this point. And so you have to be somewhat lucky, but you also have to build smart teams. You have to be intelligent with how you plan your teams, with how you build them, how you draft them, how you layer drafting them, especially if you're going to draft 150 entries. You want to make sure that, you're not drafting 150 this week. You want to spread it out until, maybe you're doing 10 a week for a while. And then as the playoffs are pretty much cemented up or as the contest starts to fill, then you start ramping up your entries where there's a lot less volatility. So definitely have your own strategy going into this. Think about, do you want a balanced portfolio? Do you want to take a stand on a couple of teams or even just one specific team? It's certainly a way to play it. It's obviously riskier than just kind of being balanced and kind of letting drafts come to you, but it's not necessarily wrong or right. It's just how do you want to play your game? So I figure let's go ahead and get into some drafts. If you have any questions, want to talk about any theory, definitely leave a comment in the chat and let us get into this. We are ready. There are 3 people in here. If you want to join, jump into the Little Mitten lobby and you will most likely enter this draft with us. We are waiting on 3 more people. I'm excited. It's been a long time. I love best ball. Drafted plenty of teams over the summer. The playoffs for regular season best ball kick off this week. I think I advanced right around 15, 20-ish %, kind of right at expected. So we're going to see how that plays out. But in the meantime, I am excited to get into this. And yeah, so looking at some ADP right now, you've got Puka's kind of the clear one, then Josh Allen, JSN, Devontae Adams. So I don't have any particular stands right now. I kind of let the first round dictate how I'm going to build the rest of my team and what team or teams I'm going to focus on for the Super Bowl. I don't really feel strongly about any of the actual NFL teams right now. There's a lot of good teams, but it's kind of hard to pick one and just be very confident that they're going to do it when the only team that you could have done that with in the past half decade is, the Chiefs. So we get the 105 here. 105 is a interesting spot. It's Saquon Barkley by ADP. If you want to build an Eagle stack, 105 is a decent place to do it. You can start with Saquon, and then ADP says to go with Jalen Hurts next, but you can also try and push it. When you take Saquon, it's hard to really go into a Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and not have Saquon. Are you really going to feel good about, putting out a lineup that doesn't have Saquon in the Super Bowl? Like, that's probably not going to win. Good question from Brian. Is playoff best ball semi just picking the Super Bowl champ? Not the champ, but a team from the Super Bowl for sure. I mean, you can definitely have a situation where the losing team puts up more fantasy points than the winning team. So it's gone pretty much by ADP. I think we are going to go Saquon here and see what comes back to us. We know he's going to play in the first round no matter what. So He's not the biggest worry in the world when it comes to a bye right now. Philly has started to fall apart, but they were doing that last year, and then they won. So things can change in a hurry, for sure. Let's see what JT Cookie does here on the turn. He goes Jalen Hurts. So he immediately disproves my idea. And so I am going to pivot to something interesting. I'm going to take Josh Jacobs here. So the reason I went Josh Jacobs, looking at ADP, the Packers are one of these teams where, they're all very cheap. You can stack up basically all of them. They're a relatively conceivable Super Bowl team. Like, you could absolutely see the Packers just kind of, their defense balls out, they make a run, and they're in, and you can get them all very cheap. But you don't want to go into a Super Bowl with aiming for Packers and you don't have Josh Jacobs. It feels pretty unlikely that, Josh Jacobs is not going to be the primary back for Green Bay and score the most fantasy points. So if you want to make that pivot early, you should probably grab Jacobs and then, go in and grab your Packers as things go. At this point, we're now looking at players that can help us advance to the final round. You're looking for high scorers. You're looking for players with good projections. Think about how players would project in any DFS slate or any weekly stuff. Jahmyr Gibbs is screaming, but again, he's certainly a bit of a risk. I think I'm going to ruin JT Cookie's day, take Devonta Smith, get a good advancement piece. I still have 2 Eagles. Doesn't really ruin anything for me. I'm not going to build the Eagles stack, obviously, but I am going to, grab a few pieces, hope they have a good game or two. And so if we're thinking about Packers, we're going to have 5 Packers. You want to have, obviously, their quarterback in Jordan Love. He still has quite a ways to go on everything. But the main thing is you want to also have a couple AFC pieces no matter what. You want to make sure that you have players that can score points for you, and possibly get 1 or 2 or even 3 players from an opposing team also into the Super Bowl if you're lucky. So we're going to go Cortland Sutton here. Good advancement piece. They could be the number 1 seed, but they could also finish out as the number 2 seed. And you really want to have players that you feel good about their projection that, can give you 25, 30 points in a good week. Cortland Sutton's one of those players. He is a red zone target. He's a big play player still, even as his role has kind of decreased with Denver over the season, but you feel good about it. I'm going to start starring some Packers just so I can keep tabs on them, especially with ADP being so random at this point. So I wouldn't consider Jonathan Taylor here. I don't think the Colts are really live to get there at this point. I did have Christian Watson sniped, which is a little annoying, but that is okay. We're just going to play into the idea that Christian Watson is not who you need in this game. Okay. I'm going to take Bucky Irving here. Again, Tampa Bay, not fully live, but relatively live to make the playoffs. I don't have very much faith in the Panthers. And you want Bucky, to score 25 points in week 1, or you get to week 2 and he's one of the few running backs that gives you a 20-point game. So that's what you're playing for with Bucky. We're going to take Jordan Love here, lock up our quarterback, kind of try and discourage people from grabbing any Packers stacks, and hopefully get 2 to 3 of these guys to fall back to us. Right now for a Super Bowl, we've got Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, no Packers pass catchers yet, but as I said, hopefully the room is discouraged from taking any Packers at this point because I do have Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs. There's plenty of stronger advance rate pieces around this ADP that are going to be more enticing from a draft perspective. So that's kind of what you're banking on. The goal is to get 5 Packers if you're playing a Packers Super Bowl. You can go more, but that's asking a lot out of 6 players. It's asking a lot for 6 Packers to give you enough usable scores to truly win a week every week. So you can. I wouldn't do it every time. I wouldn't even do it 50% of the time, maybe a third of the time. Especially, I think the Packers are one of the teams you can do it because the wide receiver room is basically just, flip a coin 6 times. You're going to get 6 different receivers scoring, just depending on how things go. So we're seeing the room fill out. Something else that I think you want to do is you most likely want to grab a second quarterback. Again, you're otherwise just kind of relying on Jordan Love to be the guy for 4 consecutive weeks. And it's not impossible, but it's a much thinner bet to make. And it's not really the type of thing that I'm interested in doing. For advance rate pieces, I'm going to take DK Metcalf. We want AFC pieces. The Steelers are gross. People usually don't want to click them. Will they make the Super Bowl? I doubt it, but they're going to play in round 1. Most likely, it gives you a score that you hopefully feel good about if he can even give you, 75% of what he did in week 14. So feel good about that. We're in the 8th round now. I am actually, quarterbacks are left. I'm actually going to pair him. We're going to take Romeo Doubs first. I don't want to be fully locked out of Packer receivers. As far as quarterbacks, you're looking preferably at AFC, Herbert, Rodgers, Stroud, all of them pretty good bets to make the playoffs. I'm not going to consider Lamar because I already took Metcalf. So in this situation, I'm expecting the Steelers to make the playoffs. Only got 2 picks left. One of them is one of these quarterbacks. The other one is going to be a Packers wide receiver. So as far as advanced piece players, we've got Saquon, we've got Bucky, Devonta Smith, Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf. You're almost hoping that they kind of drag the Packers along, and obviously you hope that Love does well, and it's just kind of sharing with his wide receivers without really getting too far into it. So let's see. I am actually short a Packer here. So I may have to forego a second quarterback on this one just to make sure I have a live Super Bowl final. Right now, it would have to be the Packers and the Broncos for me to even field a roster, which doesn't feel fantastic. So we'll go Jaden Reed. He's back. He's healthy. He's running routes. You love to see that. And let's see what happens with these final two picks. Goes Quentin Johnston. I feel a little bad about sniping him on Devonta Smith, but he still got Brown, Hurts, and Goddard out of it. So, he got a decent Eagle stack. Looks like he's going to use the whole clock. He takes Will Shipley. And what do we think, folks? Matthew Golden or Dontavian Wicks? Got 15 seconds to drop in the chat which one you would pick. I'm going to go Wicks. I went Golden. Too slow. That's okay. Alrighty. So, final team, banking on a Packers Super Bowl. You've got Jordan Love at quarterback. Wasn't able to get a second quarterback. It's not the end of the world. Packers are not going to be the 1 seed in the NFC, so it's not. I mean, they could be, but it'd be pretty unlikely. The Rams would have to lose a couple games for them to drop out of that 1 seed, and the Seahawks would have to lose a couple games. So feel pretty confident the Packers are going to be playing in week 1. So you've got Jordan Love with Josh Jacobs, and then 3 Packers pass catchers in Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, and Matthew Golden. Fill out the other roster and try and get us as far as possible. We've got Saquon Barkley, Bucky Irving at running back, Devonta Smith, Cortland Sutton, and DK Metcalf at the wide receiver position. I was too slow, unfortunately, but I was with you. I felt Wicks. That's okay, though. Maybe Matthew Golden will finally play like an NFL player for the first time all season in the Super Bowl. You never know. Alrighty, that is the first draft done. Let's go ahead, scroll all the way over, and hop into another one. Again, didn't really talk about it before I entered, but for the Little Mitten, 2 out of 6 advance in the first round, which is nice. So as long as you have a top 2 team, you have a shot. And then it's 1 out of 5, 248 seat final, only 18,000 entrants. We're already 3% full. And yeah, 5,000 the first. Not nearly as top heavy as the Gauntlet, or I imagine even the Mitten or the Big Mitten, but for the smaller stakes, this is certainly a fine advancement rate to expect. If you make it out of the first round, you get your $3 back. If you make it out of the second round, you double it to 6, and then basically anything beyond that, you are making decent profit if you're in the finals. But again, your $20 is not the best out of a $3 entry fee and actually making the finals. So you are shooting for up here. You are shooting for a very high placement if you can. So sometimes you'll want to take risks. You'll want to try and draft the absolute best teams. In the situation where I started with Saquon, if the 6 hole had not gone Hurts and Brown, I was not going to go Hurts at my pick. I was going to go a strong advancement piece and see if I could push Hurts and Brown all the way back around. Like I said, without Saquon, an Eagles team feels not super live to win you any money. So you're trying to get the best possible teams, and really the only way to do that is volume. And varying the time of day you draft, the time of year you're drafting, all that kind of stuff. That plays almost as big a role as the players you're actually picking, but trying to get the luckiest draft that you can get without actually having control over what that is. So let's go ahead and hop into another little mitten here, $3 entry. And we snap filled. I have the 105 again. But we have different people in this room, so I might try the Saquon thing again. I also don't think Christian McCaffrey is a bad idea either. Yeah, I think the 49ers defense is just absolutely demolished, but their offense is so good, especially when healthy, and it seems like they're starting to get back to full health, that it's not impossible that 49ers get there. It'll be interesting to see how it goes for sure. Alrighty. As always, folks, if you are new here and you want to sign up on Underdog, please use the promo code down below, FN Plus. When you play $5, you will get $75 in bonus funds that you can use on these playoff best ball drafts. Join in on the fun with us. See if you can call your shot. That's more or less what this is about, is can you guess the Super Bowl matchup? And can you guess the 5 fantasy players that don't make the Super Bowl that can score the most points to get you there? So, certainly not impossible, but also not a terribly hard thing to do. That is an interesting start. Christian McCaffrey at 1. Let's see what happens here. Saquon goes. That's interesting. I'm going to take JSN. And we're going to see what the 6 hole does. Takes Adams. Will he take Kyron or will he take Stafford? Takes Kyron. All right. Let's go James Cook. Again, kind of hard to play a Bills Super Bowl without Josh Allen in it. But, it's a good advance piece. He could easily go off. Playoff question. Who for QB1? I have Brissett, waivers, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, or Caleb. As a Cardinals fan, I kind of think Brissett's just going to keep doing what he's doing. But Trevor Lawrence is interesting. The Jags are just kind of comfortably probably in the playoffs, and they're playing well, and Jacoby Myers has kind of helped Lawrence come back to being like a solidly good quarterback. But I think I would go Lawrence. I think he's running a bit. He has a bit less potential to pumpkin, is what I would say. Alrighty. Let's see. Let's see what Squats does. Takes Devonta Smith. AJ Brown has come all the way back, but I kind of need to. It's go Drake May. Hope is to get Diggs. A.J. Brown falls and Diggs goes, then so be it. If both of them go, then we might be in a position that's not my favorite to be in, but one that you can certainly work. So let's see what T-Fly does here. Goes Broncos. Honestly, I'm going A.J. Brown. Diggs is not a lock to be the number one for Drake May. A.J. Brown usually does not fall into the fourth round, so I am just going to load up on that. We have Drake May, James Cook, Jackson Smith and Jigba, A.J. Brown. We're probably playing for a Patriots Super Bowl. We'll see how many Patriots fall back to me. Two of them are already gone, but Patriots are one of the teams where you feel somewhat okay about the secondary running back with Ramondre. Well, what should be the secondary running back, but Patriots are absolutely not interested in that. Another question, who for my wide receiver 3 and flex spot? Got Adams and Jacoby Myers, Taylor and Jacobs. Got Henderson, Charbonnet, Singletary, Debo, Addison, Booty, Johnston, Evans, Kittle, and Jawan. Definitely Kittle over Jawan. Henderson for sure. I would probably go Debo. I'm on the clock here. So we're going to take Ramondre first because Patriots Super Bowl is impossible for me if I don't have a Patriots running back. So we're going to grab Ramondre. And then Hunter Henry. So we've got 3 Patriots. We need 2 more of them. Then we have A.J. Brown, JSN, and James Cook so far as advanced pieces. Definitely need a second quarterback on this one. Drake May has decently high chance of being on a bye. So we're looking at Purdy. It's already pretty thin. I don't like taking a second AFC quarterback, but I might. Man, quarterback got wiped out really early in this draft. In past years, is having an RB2 worth it? It really depends. With most teams just not using a workhorse anymore, you can easily have the backup be the one that gets the goal line touch in the Super Bowl or even in weeks to help you advance. This is a very small player pool to choose from. So a touchdown is already a good step towards advancement from anyone. So Ramondre's definitely a player that you feel okay about. I'm going to grab Purdy now because he's like the only NFC quarterback left. And then we'll prioritize Jawan Jennings. If he goes, Ricky Pearsall. But yeah, RB2s are not dead. I mean, if, last year when we weren't sure if it was going to be Bills or Chiefs or what have you, like people were drafting Ty Johnson, people were drafting Ray Davis. I think that's fully live to be fine. Ramondre's Unfortunately, the RB1. But yeah, I think Blake Corum is a good pick this year. I do think if you're confident it's the Bills, I think Ty Johnson is a fine pick. Probably not Ray Davis. He's just been kind of faded out, but Ty Johnson catches passes. He has a couple like 50-yard receptions on the season already. So you're certainly looking for randomness like that. And, the Bills are impossible to stack because they just have no one. It's a crapshoot every single week. It's kind of just Josh Allen and whoever, like if you were playing this as like a DFS, you wouldn't want Josh Allen with anyone, but you also need Bills players to actually like score in the Super Bowl. It could be interesting with Josh Allen very specifically, if you think the Bills are making the Super Bowl and you think you're confident in the NFC team, you could take Josh Allen expecting him to get to the Super Bowl, but not worry about any other Bills players. It's very rare to get Josh Allen and James Cook. It's not impossible, but you really have to get lucky. But otherwise, you can just call your shot on the NFC team and then hope that they face Josh Allen, and then you have probably the higher scoring quarterback and then probably all the more predictable higher scoring players from the NFC team. That's certainly a possibility. You take Booty here. I have no interest in Terrell Jennings. It unfortunately has to be a Patriot. So we're going to go pop here. I like Kyle Williams. He just doesn't see the field enough to really interest me that much. Alrighty. This second team, we've got the Patriots making the Super Bowl in this one. Drake May at quarterback, Ramondre Stevenson at running back, with Hunter Henry, Kayshon Boutte, and Demario Douglas as the receivers. Advance rate pieces / possibly Super Bowl opponents. You've got Brock Purdy with the 49ers. You have James Cook, who you're hoping is who loses to the Patriots in conference championship. I haven't looked at the seeding if that's possible, but it's a little early to be predicting that anyways. But you're hoping James Cook is hitting your lineup most weeks. You're pretty certain that JSN is hitting your lineup as long as the Seahawks are playing. A.J. Brown has been more consistent lately, although the Eagles have been losing when they throw him the ball. So who knows how that goes, but he was a huge ADP faller. For some reason, the Hurts drafter just didn't take him. I'm actually curious. So he tried to push. I'm confused why he did that, to be honest. He had the perfect start. He had Saquon Hurts. He got A.J. Brown all the way back. He could have taken him here, and I kind of doubt anyone's taking Devonta Smith. That's his ADP is more in the mid-20s. I feel like he should have gone Brown here and pushed Smith around the turn to get him back, and then you would have had the literal perfect Eagles stack. He also didn't take Goddard. Goddard just flat out didn't go in this draft. That's kind of crazy. Didn't even notice that. But alrighty then. Manuel Wilson pick. Didn't notice that. Yeah. What did he build out? He got 2 Rams. Stafford went with Puka. That's kind of the catch-22 with Rams is you're probably only ever getting one of them and Stafford. Very rare. Sometimes Kyron will fall all the way down to Puka, especially if Puka goes at 3, but that's rare. So he went the Rams. Looks like he's building out a Broncos Super Bowl with Sutton, Franklin. See, this this team's kind of, I mean, it's not dead, like, but he basically has to have the Rams versus the Broncos in order to even like field a roster. So yeah, I don't really see what Emmanuel Wilson does for you in that situation. He's not part of your core. So like why there's no reason to be contrarian like in this draft. I know that logic would tell you you do need to, and in years past where it was like it's either the Chiefs or the Bills, period, and it's either the Eagles or Lions, period. Like you could be more contrarian in that case because you could just build for every scenario. But like this is the best playoff best ball that we've ever had to draft because it's completely up in the air. Like you can easily see any of the 7 teams on both sides making the Super Bowl. A few of them would be like completely out of left field, but there's no juggernauts to take down this year. There's no like clear favorites that you have to overcome, despite everything. So to go Emmanuel Wilson when you don't even have a Packers stack, like I wouldn't do that personally. I don't think that's really how you win anything. Like what is he ever going to do for that team? If he's hitting your lineup, you're probably in trouble. Honestly, it's not a smart play. It's everyone else is gone, and I have one Packer, and they're the only team that advanced. Like, yeah, I would definitely recommend to folks to, it feels a little scary to truly like commit that hard to a team, but you are only playing for the last round pretty much. If you want to draft a bunch of teams that are just going to min cash, like you can. It's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. And you might get a few past that point to make some amount of profit, but why truly play this game unless you're trying to win first, really? And the best way to build teams is to draft like you're right. And I think that's really the big thing about playoff best ball is, in regular season best ball, an underdog, it's 18 rounds. There's plenty of bench spots. There's a few more starters, but you have a huge array of players. You're picking from guys that may only see the field half the season, if that, in some cases. Like in playoff best ball, it's 10 rounds. There's only 4 weeks. Like you don't need to get ridiculously fancy with some of your stuff. If you're doing it on the team that you are very confident is going to win the Super Bowl, then I'm not saying that's wrong. Like that could pay off for you. Like if you have Bills and you want to go Ty Johnson and you want to go, a 6th bill and take like Tyrell Shavers in the last round, like that's your prerogative. It's not necessarily wrong, but what I think is wrong is taking Tyrell Shavers on a Rams draft, where you have 5 Rams and a couple other pieces from a couple other teams. Like, what would you project Tyrell Shavers for in DFS? Like 2 points, 3 points? You're looking for good projections to help bolster the team that you're expecting to make the Super Bowl. You're not trying to be contrarian with your advanced pieces because no one is trying to be contrarian with advanced pieces because it's already hard enough to predict these weeks as it is. Like that's why we have projections. That's why DFS exists. And to go completely outside of it and, in DFS terms, take a min 3K wide receiver just for the sake of it when you're not even constricted by salary or anything like that. Like, I just wouldn't do that. Again, you can if you want, but it's certainly a much thinner play, in my opinion. We're going to do one more of these and then see how we're feeling. Another $3 little mitten. I am the only one in the room. There's 5 more spots if you want to jump in and draft with me. Again, I will say it one more time for the folks. If you're new or if you're just tuning in, if you have not joined Underdog yet, please do so if you can in your state. Use the promo code FN Plus. When you play any play for $5, you will get $75 in bonus funds to use on whatever you'd like on the Underdog site. It could be pick'ems, it could be these playoff best ball, it could be weekly best ball like the Battle Royale. If you follow our written content, I put out a weekly Battle Royale strategy article. Usually comes out, I want to say every Thursday or every Friday of the week. So, there's still some time to have fun in those streets. Those have, I want to say, $50,000 to first every week. So plenty of money to play for if that is your kind of thing. Looks like we have filled up here. Let's see what draft spot I'm getting this time. 101. Love the 101. I don't overly like to be fancy here. Again, if you have very strong team takes, like, you think the Bills are absolutely locked to make the Super Bowl, you can take Josh Allen at 101, but you're kind of shutting yourself out of any pukas because you're just going to take Allen at 101 and every time he's at 102, and then you're going to be underweight on arguably the best wide receiver in football for arguably the best offense in football. So you can if you want, but in first round, at least in the first 3 to 4 picks, I'm probably just going to stick by ADP, let that steer how I build my draft. We're going to see if Kyron makes it all the way back around, if Stafford makes it around. If not, then Puka will be an advance rate piece. If you have any waiver questions, any start-sit questions in the chat, feel free to drop them. I am monitoring all the comments, happy to help, as is anyone in our Discord. Please join that if you haven't already. Please like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate it. We are young and a small team, but we are trying to grow. We're excited to be bringing this content, excited to see what the future holds for our team. And your support means the world to us. So thanks everyone who's watching. Thanks everyone who watches this after the fact. We appreciate y'all. This is a slow draft so far. Vonta goes at 104. I'm just going to bookmark some Rams just in case, just to see. Let's see. The Rams don't work out. Could go the Patriots again. Could go the Broncos. Haven't done any Bronco Super Bowls yet. Going Rams and Broncos is a little scary just because they both are relatively live to get the number 1 seeds. So, it's not my favorite to draft a quote-unquote advance rate piece. All right, Matthew Stafford goes unstacked to the 1-6 drafter. So he can have fun with that. Let's see here. Quarterbacks are going early. Basically, all the early quarterbacks are already gone, besides Hurts. I don't think Philly stuff is going to fall to me, but it's an interesting one. McGuire already has Josh Allen. Wonder what he'll do. The real question is, do you take Saquon and Hurts? He took Saquon. Do you do Eagles without Saquon? It's not the most fun. It's very thin. Or is this one where you're just saying you're going to be confident in a specific matchup? Let's do it. Let's do Hurts. Let's do AJ Brown. So they could just be advance rate pieces, to be honest. If I get locked out of both Devonta and Goddard, which already lost Devonta, so it's kind of a thin bet at that point. So I probably am just going to pivot out of that almost immediately. And we'll see what else is floating around here. There's a couple teams that just no one wants to draft and no one has any faith is going to make the Super Bowl, even though I think it's like wildly wide open. Like very few Chargers go, very few Steelers go, very few Jags go. So I don't think it's the end of the world to, if your construction in this range doesn't go the way that you're hoping for, you can use it as a team where you're going to pick a very not unlikely, but a much less likely Super Bowl team. Especially if you're building a portfolio, I think it's smart to go that direction and really lean into the randomness that this season has brought. So let's see what happens here. So Harvey goes. Would have been interested in Broncos if Harvey was still there. All right. Yeah. Harvey, it feels very unlikely to have Broncos without RJ Harvey. So we're going to go Goddard. We're going to have 3 Eagles. And then I'm going to take Travis Etienne. ADP doesn't super duper matter at this point. You're just kind of building out your teams here. So we've got Etienne. I'm going to start BTJ, Myers, Lawrence, Tootin, Strange, Parker Washington, Tim Patrick. See, like in this scenario, if I'm playing for a Jaguars Super Bowl, Tim Patrick, I think, is fine as like your last click. You don't have to go just BTJ, Jacoby, and Strange as like your most likely options. Like Patrick has plenty of touchdown equity. He's a bigger bodied guy. Parker Washington is also talented, gets open. It's, this is a thin bet to begin with. It's why they're all incredibly cheap by ADP. But that's why you make the play that you do. So as far as advancement, we've got Hurts, ETN, Puka Nacua, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert. Definitely want another running back or 2 that could score some points. It's a little thin, It's going to be tempting to have Jonathan Taylor there, but it's also very unlikely that the Colts make the playoffs and the Jaguars make the playoffs and the Texans make the playoffs. So I'm definitely, I have a few players in mind here. Hampton goes. That's kind of who I was hoping for. No one else is sticking out to me. So I think I'm just going to go Brian Thomas Jr. And I'm going to go Jalen Warren. Yeah, I'm going to go Jalen Warren. So got Jalen Hurts, Travis Etienne, Jalen Warren, Puka Nacua, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, Brian Thomas Jr. Trying to build out a Jaguars Super Bowl. We'll see how that goes. Alrighty. And just to let y'all know, we are hopefully going to start streaming this a lot more often, do a lot more best ball drafts, playoff best ball drafts, underdog content in general. So stay tuned. We are thinking Tuesday nights, but we have not confirmed that yet. So we will announce that once we are know for certain. But for now, that is the plan. That is the hope. I'm excited to talk best ball with y'all, and we'll have some guests to have other conversations. So we're going to take Trevor Lawrence, we're going to take Jacoby Myers. So we've got 4 Jaguars right now. We'll take our 5th with this last pick. What do y'all think? Drop in the comments who out of these 4 do you think I should take to be our 5th Jaguar in this unlikely but certainly possible scenario. Do we think Etienne and Tootin can both get there? My regular season best ball bags wish Tootin would get there, but last week was not a positive sign for him. You know, BTJ is just talented and can break a week with his abilities. Jacoby Myers has been exactly what Trevor Lawrence needed to become a functional quarterback again. You know, still have Jalen Hurts to hopefully be there for a round or two. You have Jalen Warren. Do we take Tootin just to try and get one extra shot at the running back position? You only have to start one, but you know, if Warren's out round 1, you're just kind of hoping that it's ETN every week. But to be honest, if the Jaguars make the Super Bowl, I kind of wonder if it would pretty much have to be an ETN week every week for them. You know, I think Trevor Lawrence is fine, but it would be quite an undertaking for him to be the player that is just dragging them to a Super Bowl win. So, I don't know. And if anyone has thoughts, drop a comment. Let's see what we're going to do with our final pick here. Dalton Schultz. Yeah, you can see that like Jonathan Taylor is going to go undrafted, Lamar undrafted, Derrick Henry undrafted, and probably rightfully so. Hmm. I think I'm going to go Parker Washington. Nah, Brent Strange. Maybe. And I went Tootin. That's okay. So, final team, Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, Travis Etienne and Bayshal Tootin at running back with Jalen Warren as an advance piece. Puka Nakua, A.J. Brown, and Dallas Goedert as advance pieces with Brian Thomas Jr. and Jacoby Myers at the receiving position, playing for a unlikely but probably very lightly drafted Jacksonville Jaguars Super Bowl. Alrighty. What do we think, folks? Do we want one more draft, or should I wrap it up for the day? Let's see. Let's do one more. Y'all have tuned in, been very active. This is our first stream of this best ball drafting. Let's get you a fourth draft for a little bonus, and then we will get out of here. We're going to do one more little mitten, $3 entry. If you want to join in, will give you a countdown to do so. I'm going to go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Only 2 in here. Still need 4 more people. Anyone wants to join? Haven't gotten any super ridiculous teams so far, but we're only 3 teams in. There's still plenty of time for that. All it takes is one person drafting poorly to really help you get what you're looking for, you know. It didn't fall our way. He had the drafter at the 6 hole in the last draft just take Matthew Stafford unstacked for no particular reason. So that kind of threw any chance of any Rams falling back to you. So had to pivot at that point. And then Saquon went right before a second round pick and kind of took the core piece of the Eagles. So yeah, I think that's kind of one thing that I will definitely say about playoff best ball is, you know, conventionally, you primarily want to stack quarterback and receivers in normal best ball when you have large rosters. That's how scoring goes for the most part. But in playoff best ball, I honestly think that you should be looking to stack your running back and quarterback because pass catchers are also more random on a game-to-game basis. You still have players that demand targets and players that are concentrated like a JSN and whatnot. But, you know, if you have a team, a Seahawks team that is Darnold, Walker, Charbonnet, Shaheed, and Cup, like, does it feel good? Absolutely not. But it's not dead. It's just unlikely, you know. But if you have a Seahawks team that just has Darnold, JSN, Cup, and Shaheed, and like you got sniped out of Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, like you're not winning that. Like you are hoping for George Halani or someone to that effect to score as a running back for you at that point. And like that's just way less likely than it is for, you know, wide receiver 4 to catch a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So something to keep in mind. Look to stack your running back and your quarterback, as many good pass catchers as you can get from that quarterback, but they are less important than the running back, in my opinion. We get the 6 hole here in our final draft of the night. See a couple names we've already seen, but a couple new ones as well. Still semi-interested in Christian McCaffrey if he's here. You can do the Eagles stack in theory if Saquon falls, but Not going to get too locked in on anything at this point. Just going to see how this round goes. I do think the ADP is interesting. I don't know if I would say James Cook should be going after Saquon and Christian McCaffrey. Like, if I had to pick an AFC favorite, it's probably still the Bills. Like, they always win close games, and they have the best quarterback in the playoffs now with Patrick Mahomes missing. So, and arguably he's better than Patrick Mahomes anyways. So we get the Eagles to fall. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take Saquon. I'm going to take Jalen Hurts. See how many Eagles pass catchers we can get back to us. Hopefully all three, but that is a somewhat tall ask of a room. So we shall see how things play out. If Brown and Smith both go, then we kind of just do what we did in last draft, and we pivot out of going on a full Eagles onslaught and just see what happens otherwise. AJ Brown goes, but that was pretty likely. This is interesting, though. Yeah, Kyron falls all the way back to the one spot. What are we going to do here in the 2 hole? Goes double Eagles. So it definitely feels unlikely that you're going to get there with Hurts, Barkley, Goddard, and 2 very tertiary Eagles. So it's definitely worth considering pivoting off of the Eagles at this point and just, again, using them as advanced pieces. So to that effect, I'm actually going to... RG Harvey already went. Well, that's unfun. We'll go Goddard. Maybe we do just play some unlikely Eagles making it. I'm going to go Kenneth Walker as well. Just because he does give us, a secondary out. We really don't want to do some tertiary Eagles. I mean, we're talking Tank Bigsby and Jahan Dotson at this point, which isn't impossible, but you're not going to feel very fun showing up to the finals in a tournament with Jahan Dotson and Tank Bigsby having to hit your lineup. So another angle you could play on this is, I don't particularly want to build 2 Jaguars Super Bowls here. If the Chargers make it all the way around, I'd be interested in that. Building out the idea that the Eagles meet the Chargers in the Super Bowl. It's unlikely, but it's not impossible to advance a team that way as well, especially not having Brown or Devonta Smith on this team. Let's see what this team does. And I still have the ability to add 5 Chargers that you feel pretty strong about, honestly. Okay, we're going to do that, actually. We're going to go Hampton. Going to go Herbert. All of these guys are fully live. You feel good about all the way down to Trey Harris, honestly, especially now that you have Hampton. You even feel, I don't know why Vidal's way down here. Even feel relatively decent about Kamani Vidal if you want. Okay. So yeah, I think we're gonna go Chargers here. Have, if the Eagles and the Chargers make the Super Bowl, you're feeling fantastic. You've still got a lot of high scoring opportunity type of players at every position. You've got hope. You're just hoping that it's much better for fantasy than last night was, but weird stuff happens all the time. And frankly, it feels better to do 5 Chargers. And it feels better, but it's also not less possible. Like, the Chargers are currently the 5 seed. They're pretty good odds to make the playoffs right now. They would truly have to fall apart completely to not make it. And this team is already a little thin as it is to get where you need it to go. So you're not really worried about the risk of them not making the playoffs because the risk on this team is already high. So it's better to just lean into that risk, lean into that bet, and just say, I know exactly what's going to happen. I have my crystal ball. Here's what's going to go down. So I need 3 Chargers to finish this out. All of them receivers, most likely. I'd consider Vidal, but we will see. There's just so many good Chargers pass catchers that if they were to actually make the Super Bowl, it would be very difficult to truly decide who you want to go with. I definitely want Ladd, no matter what. I do think QJ is probably the best pick. Just he does have the highest potential for an absolute blow up game. So got 4 Chargers, 3 Eagles, and a Seahawk here. Team is Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert, Saquon Barkley, Kenneth Walker, Omarion Hampton, Dallas Goedert, Ladd McConkey, and Quentin Johnston. So there's 2 rounds left. I need 1 more Charger because I've got 4 right now. And then I technically can do an advance rate piece if there's anyone that I like, or I could do a 6th Charger because they are that deep. I don't mind Troy Franklin if he's there. Don't mind Juwan Jennings if he's there. I don't mind DK Metcalf if he's there. Don't mind Jalen Warren if he's there. The Bears are another team that are pretty live to make the playoffs, and no one really clicks them. So, I think going with a Bear in the last round or 2, or, playing out a Bear Super Bowl is certainly a way to get unique. None of these guys are worth clicking because they're not going to make the playoffs. Troy Franklin falls all the way back, so I'll go with that. And then I need a Charger. I'm going to pick Rhonda Gadsden. Keenan Allen has been slowing down. Gadsden is way more fun. And he's going to score more points in a random week that you would project than Keenan Allen would. So, final team of the stream. Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert at quarterback, Saquon Barkley, Kenneth Walker, Omari, and Hampton at running back. I feel very strongly about that. And then a hodgepodge of receiving options. Dallas Goedert, Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Troy Franklin, who fell, and Rhonda Gadsden. If we look at the board here, anything interesting as we wait for this draft to wrap up? Got a Patriots and 49ers Super Bowl, it looks like. 5-hole. Looks like an kind of undecided 4-hole with a couple Rams, couple Bills, couple Jags, couple Ravens. That's the type of team that will definitely advance, especially if the Ravens make it in and score points, but feels a lot thinner to really do anything past the first round or two. 3 holes, just picking random guys at ADP, to be honest. So, unfortunately, this team's just dead on arrival. 2-hole, you've got Josh Allen, you've got both Eagles, and then you've got a Green Bay, almost a full Green Bay Super Bowl. So you're just hoping for, honestly, you're hoping for Green Bay versus Buffalo to get there. And then 1 seed, you've got Rams, Broncos, some Texans to fill it out. So you're hoping Rams Super Bowl against either the Broncos or the Texans. Alrighty, friends. That is going to do it for me tonight. Thank you so much for joining in, for interacting in the chat, for asking good questions, and watching me draft some best ball teams. This has been a Fantasy Now Plus production, also brought to you by Finn's Talk Sports Network. As a reminder, if you have not signed up for Underdog already, please do so if you can, using the promo code FN+, FNPLUS, spelled out. When you play $5, you will get $75 in bonus funds to use on whatever you desire on Underdog. And that's going to do it for us this week. I am Tim, and I will catch everyone later. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. We'll be back next week for more ways to win your league.